Hi everybody, I'm John Lacey and this is the video and live streaming show. I'm joined as always by my co-host Sam Proof. Today on the show we're looking at the Elgato Stream Deck family of devices. What are they and how can they help you? We'll be looking at plugins that specifically relate to screen sharing and presentations and also operating OBS Studio. This is a slightly edited version of our conversation, so let's jump in.
They did recently release a production model of their Stream Deck Studio, which is a rack-mounted 32-button, I believe that's right, Stream Deck experience, which you can daisy chain to multiples.
Sorry, Sam, you were talking about this wonderful new thing that they've just released, and I must admit it's a little confusing, and I think it's worthwhile just unpacking this for a second because it uses it's called the Stream Deck Studio. Let me just see if I can share my screen and hopefully my audio is okay. But there's this contraption here, the Stream Deck Studio. So it's basically a panel. It's got buttons and knobs on it. The thing that is kind of a little bit confusing is even though it's sort of built on Stream Deck software, you actually use the BitFocus software to operate this particular thing. So, and I've heard sort of conflicting reports that you have to pay a monthly subscription to that software.
Oh, really?
Some people tell me that that's for advanced features and you don't necessarily need that for everything. So again, I mean, I love the idea of it. It's a beautiful unit. I don't have the space on my desk for a rack mounted anything.
Sure.
So, so you got to sort of keep that in mind. But yes, it is kind of interesting. But I guess the thing that we want to underpin is that we've got sort of it's a whole family of devices. So we've got the Stream Deck Mini, which is this 6-button contraption. I have to be careful I don't move too much because then you'll see the ends of my green screen. I've got the Stream Deck XL, which has I think 32 buttons. There are foot pedals. There are I know Saeed's got the Plus unit, which has the knobs and the dials and the touch screen. So there's all kinds of stuff. And I guess the thing that we're going to talk about in the next segment, which we'll get to very, very quickly because, of course, half the show's gone already due to those technical issues. But, the thing is, if you don't have one of these devices, you still can use some phone apps. And that's what I'm really excited to talk to you about today. Saeed does sort of ask about the Stream Deck Studio and says, who is the target group for this? Not the home user, right? No, I don't think it is. I think it's like, it's really, and it's interesting because it's sort of home. I think it's like automation software, this BitFocus AS. And I have a weird feeling I've seen somebody talk about this recently, but I don't remember who it was. But yeah, I mean, it's interesting because it looks cool. And like, the examples I see are people with the, they've got several racks. They're sort of doing some pretty serious work in a control room.
Based on the design itself, it looks like it's trying to replace the TriCaster, which is like professional, live broadcast hardware equipment that, companies like Fox are using to like do like the Super Bowl and things like that. Like this is really expensive, high-end equipment. So nobody should be expecting to use this in their home unless they're just crazy. Like they're just one of us and they're like, well, I'm going to get a rack mounted desk for some reason. Like I don't like, I can appreciate it. It's as someone who's actually used a TriCaster, looking at the Elgato equivalent of this does also break my mind a little bit. Like it's intense.
And I guess the other thing we haven't mentioned either is that the Stream Deck Studio, which is just one of those panels, so you get 2 knobs and a collection of buttons, it's sort of $900 US a pop. So I don't think it is for everybody. Saeed does mention the Neo version as well, which is the budget version. Has anybody tried that one? I certainly haven't. I remember seeing the Neo range for the first time and saying something really unkind about them. So I won't repeat that on air. But I was surprised because then, and again, it might be different in different parts of the world, but they're not dramatically cheaper than the other Elgato products. So I kind of thought if you were going for that cheap plasticky look that, you know, maybe it would be dramatically cheaper, but evidently it was not. Hello to Business Growth Ready, who's noting that he had two DBX 286 microphone preamp and channel strip processors. So they're something else that can be easily rack mounted. So they would have gone together nicely. Yeah, again, it's just one of those things. Like, I think it's very much for a control room setup, but as we say, it uses different software. It's probably not for the people that hang out here, but you know, it certainly looks nice and it's certainly worth checking out. But I guess if you don't own a Stream Deck, and I think a lot of people in the audience, and hello to Walter as well, who I forgot to greet earlier. We're going to go and come back and talk about the mobile version and what your options are there. So thank you so much for joining us.
We are constantly training our cats every interaction that we have with them. So when Johan would get on my counter before, you know, this is 10 years ago, before I was the cat expert that I am now, Johan would jump on the counter. What was the first thing I did? I'd say his name, Johan. He loves that. That's a reward for him. He said, you just said my name. I would go over to him and I'd talk to him and be like, you can't be on the counter. Johan loves when I talk to him. Ding, that's another reward for Johan. I'd pick him up and put him on the ground, but I didn't want him to think I was mad at him. So when I'd pick him up very nicely and kiss him on the head and say, I love you, but you can't be here. I'd put him on the ground. I had just done 3 things that rewarded him for being on the counter. So I was encouraging him to continue doing that.
And that's a promo for Sam's podcast, Just Kidding Around, which you can learn more about over at cuteavalanche.com. Thank you so much for joining us. This is the video and live streaming show. Today on the show, we're talking all about the Elgato Stream Deck. And of course it is, you know, you have some really beautiful pieces of physical hardware that you can bring into your setup. But we do also want to talk a little bit about, I guess, you know, if you don't have the budget for that right now, what you might like to try instead. So I'm just going to, I really probably shouldn't try and multitask because it's always a bit of a disaster, but I'm just going to see if I can remember this stream. I'm going to throw something to the chat. That's what I'm going to do. I'm not going to overcomplicate my life.
Fine.
I tried setting up something in the chat bot earlier, but I think it's going to be a little bit tricky. So I guess what I want to say too is if you want to see any of the links of the things that we might be discussing today, you can head over to johnlacey.com/Stream Deck plugins. And I guess first of all, you know, we do have these apps, the mobile apps. So I do want to talk about that a little bit. I don't know, Sam, have you had a chance to play with these yet?
On the mobile, no, I haven't.
Okay. I installed it a while ago, and I was sort of coaching someone through some OBS stuff, and we decided to give it a go, and it was actually really kind of fun. And a part of me is sort of debating whether to sort of bring this in and play with it more generally. But if I just do my screen share and go full screen for a second. So this is the article about with the links and stuff that I sort of alluded to and it's in the chat if you want to check that out. But if you don't have this, they do have the mobile, Stream Deck mobile apps. They're available for iOS and Android. The Android one took a really long time to reach us, but it's great that it's now available. You can sort of scan a QR code to grab this. And with the free version, you sort of get access to 6 buttons. And I know that probably doesn't seem like a lot, but you could use these for multi-actions. You could sort of toggle these in different ways to really get your, I was going to say your money's worth. I don't know if that's right, given that you're not really paying anything. Right. But essentially what you need to do is download the Stream Deck software, which is actually what you see on the right-hand side of the screen behind me. And you just link it up to your phone. And again, these are the 6 free buttons. There are some options to actually pay for this outright, and I don't think they're on this page, but so you can stay free or you can go pro. You'll get a lot more buttons, up to 64 buttons on the mobile, which is it's double the number of buttons on the Stream Deck Extra Large, which is something that they note. And if we have a look over here, the pricing is sort of $3.99 per month, or $29, $30 essentially a year, or $60 for lifetime access. So I guess if it is something you want to play with, and you can afford that $60, it's certainly a great way of doing this. But essentially, we get these buttons. These buttons are sort of reproduced on the app on your phone. You do need to sort of have the software on both your phone and also on your mobile device. and there's so much random stuff on my phone. I don't know how easily I'm going to be able to find this to show you, but essentially the buttons we have over here are the same buttons that you'll see on the screen behind me, and you can set them up to do all kinds of things. We've got things like hide and show, like I've got OBS filters, and again, this is sort of a really fun thing to play with, and it's a great place to start, but in some ways it's not really the place I would personally want to live, although I don't know. I mean, $60, and I'm assuming these are in American dollars, US dollars. I'm not really sure. You probably want to do some research on that before you commit. But I don't think that's bad. And I guess the only thing is, can you mount your phone somewhere where you've got access to it? And I guess the other thing is just making sure it doesn't sort of, power itself off or go into standby mode if you are using it for a live production. So.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Absolutely. All right.
Yeah, I wonder how good it is about reconnecting if it does go into that. I assume it's pretty fast, but that would be something. I think the thing with like the mobile app, like as you said, like it's great to have that sort of trial ability to play with it for free with 6 buttons, and if you're a streamer, that's great. You've got start and stop record. It can be one button. Like you can set up buttons to toggle a lot of things or even do multi-action. So 6 buttons gives you a good starting place. You start and stop your stream, start and stop recording. You have like 1 or 2 scene switches, and then you're left with 2 more buttons that could prompt other things. So it's like, it's not really that small an amount when it comes to streaming. If you start getting into like, I want to use it for, editing process or Photoshop process, you might immediately come to a point where you're like, that's not nearly enough buttons whatsoever. But it's a good taste.
And like it is one of those things that I think before you play with this kind of equipment, you may wonder why on earth you would even need it. Like, what is the point of this? But once you do use it, you'll quickly discover that you won't be able to live without it. So even to run this show, like, and again, I've got the 32 button model here in front of me. 2 of those are two of those buttons are used to move to different pages, but I've got every single button on this screen set up just to operate this show. And sometimes I need to sort of go off, and in fact, like let me show you. Well, actually, I'll show you a little bit later on. But again, Saeed is saying I recommend the mobile app in my classes because I do not want someone to buy something before they know if they need it or want it. So exactly. Great to get familiar with the functionalities. And, he makes another interesting point. So 64 is new. I can imagine this could be nice on a tablet, not on a phone. And I guess the thing, I don't think you would have access to all 64 buttons on the one screen of a phone. In fact, I don't even
definitely
think
have to have pages or something.
There'd definitely be pages. And I think that's the thing. I think there's 3, 6, 9, 12, 15 buttons per page by the looks of things. And you'd have so many pages to get up to that 64. Again, like I don't think it's a terrible idea. And I kind of, like I said, I'm coaching someone through a little bit of OBS lately, and even the ability to sort of set up the Move plugin to rearrange her and some other elements on the screen and with those filters, and then just trigger those filters by a phone, I think is kind of amazing because keyboard shortcuts are really wonderful, but you kind of need to remember what they are, and you kind of need to negotiate your way around the keyboard. Whereas this is just a press of a button. For the most part.
That's totally a point I was about to make. Was when the Stream Deck first came out, I did not immediately jump on it, and I was like, I can do hotkeys. What's the big deal? And then I ended up, working at Mob Crush, and they had a Stream Deck, and when I sat down with it, I never went back to hotkeys. Like I was like, this is the thing. It's a fraction of a second difference, but it's so much better. Like it's just such a difference.
And like the struggle is you just need to remember those. And like if I go from my video editing software to my audio editing software, and like I want to make a cut, I'm like, is it B? Is it S? Do I have to go Control Shift something or other? It can be a bit of a problem. So Anyway, we're going to go to the next segment. Sam probably needs to check out at this point. And
Dip out, yeah.
He's just got an appointment. He'll hopefully be joining us next time. Say he does make a really great point about these visual aids, so the icons and the colors, and that's the thing. I never changed the icons, but I'm conscious of the fact that you could.
Oh yeah, this was the point I wanted to make before I did dip out, was that the beauty of the Stream Deck compared to the keyboard hotkeys or shortcuts that we didn't really mention was it's fully customizable. You can put whatever icon or color on that button you want. It could be an animated GIF. It can toggle between two. So it is immediately recognizable that that is the stream button. That is the record button. I did a setup at Mob Crush that had all of these crazy effects and zooms. So you could just see from the button, like, that's going to do like an echo trail of 50 people. And like, this is going to be you in a circular mask. And this is going to be upside down and all of these things. And the buttons were just immediately recognizable to show that effect was going to happen.
Absolutely. Okay, we're going to go and we'll come back and talk about some plugins specifically for presenting and OBS. This is the Video and Live Streaming Show. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Hi, I'm John Lacey, and in Build a Presentation Muscle, I want to talk about finding your voice, refining and sharing your message, using tools and technology to share that message, and looking after yourself as a creator.
And that's a promo for my podcast. He says, as he goes completely blank and forgets the name of his own podcast, Build a Presentation Muscle. So the podcast all about showcasing your expertise through content creation, which you can learn more about over at johnlacey.com. I think I'm just going to go full screen for the rest of the show because Sam has to head off, but that's fine. So today we're talking all about the Elgato Stream Deck. We've spoken about the devices that you can potentially buy and add to your setup. We've spoken about the mobile apps, which are really, really fun. And I guess the other great thing about the mobile apps is you don't need to be in front of your computer to trigger things. So that in itself can be really, really nice. And I don't generally think about the Stream Deck as sort of being a home automation device, but it could be. Like, I do have it set up to trigger lights and all kinds of weird, wonderful, fun stuff. So we're going to keep going. We're going to talk about some of the things that we have access to. And just a reminder, if you wanted to check out the article that accompanies this, which will have all the links, I was hoping to bring them straight into the chat for you, but I just didn't have time to do that. But you can head over to johnlacey.com/Stream Deck plugins, which will take you over here. And I've clicked on something I didn't mean to, but that's okay. So let's go back to this article. And so the things that we're going to be talking about for the rest of today are really about plugins that you could use for sharing your screen and presenting, and also for working with OBS Studio, which is the thing that, you know, Sam and I love to do most of the time. So let's get stuck into this. And the first one, I'm just going to jump to a quick video because it's fun. I don't know, it's particularly useful, but it's very entertaining. So let me just show you this one. This is the mouse sonar plugin, and it gives you the ability to animate and add some sound effects when you click on things. So this is basically what this looks like. And it's one of those things that I just remembered. I hadn't checked to see if that audio went out, so it may or may not have gone out. But essentially, it's just sort of a pulsating sonar sound. It's kind of fun. I don't know if it's particularly useful. And again, the comment that Saeed made about that was essentially you have to make sure that you do actually have you're in a position where you're sharing the audio as well. Because I guess the thing is, it's its own little application that appears on top of whatever you're sharing. So it is fun. It is novel. I don't know that it's necessarily particularly useful, but let's just talk about some of these other plugins. I guess first of all, if I go to the Stream Deck software on the right-hand side of my screen here, you can see that I've got the Stream Deck, which is essentially the Mini, the Stream Deck Mobile, and the Stream Deck Extra Large. I'll just show you this really briefly because this is the 32 buttons and 30 of them are for the show. And a lot of these are multi-action things. Some of them are filters for OBS. Saeed has certainly suggested I try to simplify this a little bit, and maybe I will moving forward. But I guess the point is, once you start using these things, you will definitely find opportunities to explore and use them further. So I guess for today, and Saeed's sort of already talking about one of the other ones too. But I'm just going to, for today's purposes, I'm actually just going to work from the Mini. It's only 6 buttons, and you know, I can have the ability to move to different pages. In fact, I'm going to do that now. I'm going to move to create a new page that I can play with. So first of all, and Saeed mentions that he uses mouse spotlight. It has a magnifying glass and a highlighter. And I'm pretty sure that was one of the ones I tried. And I should mention too, the reason we're doing this show today is because of Saeed. He mentioned something about this. I think it was specifically this one here. And it sort of sent me down a bit of a rabbit hole because it's been a while since I looked at the plugins, and there are some really, really cool things that are available here. And I guess the thing is, once you go to the marketplace, so if I click on here, this will actually open the Elgato marketplace. It is worth noting too that it has more than just plugins here. It has icons, it has profiles, sound effects, music, and screensavers. But today we'll sort of focus on the plugins. So here we can sort of search for different things. So if I go mouse, for example, because that was kind of the thing I was playing with, let's just see if we can find, okay, so it's this one here, the mouse spotlight, I think was the one that Saeed mentioned, and I'm sure I've installed this, so let me just see if I can, yeah, there we go. So it's actually come down into the custom category, and that's another great tip, by the way. If you can't find what you're looking for easily, you can always search for it. So if I drag this out onto the Stream Deck, you get a whole bunch of different options here. So we can give this a title. I don't know, I might even just say purple. It could be anything you like. We have the options of how this might look. So circle spotlight, ring spotlight, magnifying glass, crosshair, and the special one, find my mouse, question mark. So if and we've got the ability to change the size and the zoom and the colors and all kinds of different things. But essentially, if I click on this right now, on the physical button, you'll see that I've got that little highlight. And that's a really good one. And I guess if we change some of these settings, and I'm really curious, say, like when you do use the magnifying glass, how much zoom do you tend to use on this one? I'm really curious. So I'll just leave it on 2, which is the default by the looks of things. And I'll press that. And now if I hover over these things, it's interesting because what it's sort of zooming in on is, you know, where my mouse cursor is, but it sort of brings it down further there as well. So if there is something that you particularly want to focus on, that can be really useful. I don't know what it is, but I never need to sneeze unless I'm actively streaming. It's just a weird thing that happens. But we've got the ability to change the opacity. So, you know, we could make that larger or smaller. Again, like especially for the circle, if I change the opacity, I could potentially make it 100%, which probably is not useful because you won't see anything underneath it. Yeah, it'll literally block it out, but maybe there's a use case for that. I can bring that down a little bit so you can see it. But the other nice thing about this is we also have things like the ring spotlight. So if I want to actually just circle something, I can press that button and bring it in. And that's something that can be really good if you want to actually focus on some different things in there. Cool. And the crosshair is another option. So if you want that sort of crosshair action, you can press that and zoom in as well. So that's really cool. And I guess the thing is, like, you know, I feel like in some ways we talk to a pretty OBS-centric crowd, but I just want to note, everything I show you in this segment could potentially be used in Zoom. It could be used in Microsoft Teams, anywhere that you're sort of sharing your screen. As long as people can see that screen, you should be good to go. So we've got all kinds of different options in there as well. The laser pointer, I guess that's sort of just a little variation on the circle. Okay, that's interesting. Okay, so if I click, okay, that's interesting. All right, so I guess we have a whole bunch of these sorts of things. So again, today I just really want to introduce you to some of the ones that I found that I thought were kind of interesting. So I'm going to head back to this article, and again, that link is in the chat if you want to check that out. johnlacey.com/Stream Deck plugins. It'll redirect you to this this LinkedIn article. Okay, so the mouse spotlight, I think that's the one. That's the one we just did. Yep, brilliant. Okay, the mouse sonar. Again, I showed you that short video. It is fun. I don't know that I would actually use it in real life unless I really wanted to entertain people. But I guess that's the thing. You could be showing something. You might sense that maybe after lunch people are a little bit tired. They're not really paying attention. You could very easily click the button on the Stream Deck and it could pulsate and make a noise. That could wake some people up. I think that would be really cool. Focus screen mask is a really fun one. I like this really quite a lot. So again, this is from the same company. They seem to produce a lot of great options here. So I'm going to drag this focus screen mask out over here. And we have a whole bunch of different options. So I can give it a title. We can sort of describe what happens when we click it on the first time and what happens on the second time. And we've got the ability to focus horizontally, vertically, or with a circle. So if I do this horizontal, and again, we have a whole bunch of different settings. I won't worry about those too much, but just see what happens when I press this button for the focus mask. So it'll actually, it'll just give you the area where your mouse cursor is pointing. So if there's something I really wanted to draw attention to, I can sort of drag it around and move that. So again, if I press that again, we can actually change the size of this. We can change the color. If I wanted the opacity to be 100%, so you were only seeing the thing that I was moving my mouse over, then that's something you could do as well. There's even some blur options. But that's the horizontal. If we try the vertical focus, it's a very similar idea, but it's just coming in the opposite direction. So, you know, it'll just give you that one column that you can be showing. And again, I'm just using the default options here. So if you wanted to make it larger or smaller, you certainly could. You could play with all those options. The circle focus as well, very similar idea. And I just think it's fun because, like, you can just imagine that it could be, you know, you could almost do like a James Bond type of sequence where you move the circle around and highlight things. And again, if you want to completely obscure the background, you can do that by increasing the opacity. But that was one I found that I was really super excited about. And again, I haven't really had a great chance to put it through its paces, but it is really fun. C does mention something which I think is worth exploring. So some of these plugins, even though you can use Stream Deck devices on both Mac and Windows, some of the plugins will be specifically for Windows, some will be specifically for Mac. And it will actually tell you. So, I mean, like, it literally says it up here, only for Windows. So, you know, if you do have a Windows computer, great. If not, you can't use this particular one. Obviously, I don't currently own a Mac, so I haven't really been playing with many of those. I know Sam does dabble between platforms, and I've been thinking about that a lot lately, and I don't know if I want to commit to that just yet, but it is definitely worth keeping in mind. So, you know, often there'll be an equivalent, but you just need to do what you do. Okay, so circle focus, you can invert the focus as well. So if you wanted to sort of, and in fact, I might make this a little bit larger just to make it more obvious in size. So maybe if I press this button, and it'll obscure everything outside of that circle. So that's the inverted option for that one as well. And we have the ring focus as well. So again, same sort of thing as the other plugin, which was also by the same company. So it's interesting, you know, you get different plugins with different options. So it might be worth looking at those as well. Okay, Said says he didn't know about this one. We'll test it. Thanks for sharing. No worries. And again, like I said, the reason I was digging into these this week is because of Said. So it's good to come full circle. And he writes, just created a multi-action, including the highlighter and the mask one. So yeah, that's the other thing too. And again, it's a little outside of the scope for today's show, but we can certainly set up buttons that'll do a number of different things at once. So that can be really cool. Let's just head back to our list. Microsoft PowerPoint, I won't actually demonstrate this because I don't really use it, but I just thought it would be worth mentioning because I know a lot of people do use PowerPoint and they're very slide driven with their presentations. You don't want to give them the death by PowerPoint experience, but I think there is certainly options for using this well. And, you know, we do have the ability to navigate between the slides during a slideshow, do things with a pointer and different things. So if you do, and I mean, again, it's much better to sort of press a button or even use a slide clicker than sort of have to worry too much about what your mouse is doing if you're doing a live presentation and you're not particularly used to doing that. So I personally, I do use PowerPoint a lot as a graphics tool. I make all my thumbnails in my video thumbnails in PowerPoint. It's this weird little quirk of mine. But I tend to export my images and then bring them into OBS to wrangle. But I mean, if you wanted to, you could just do a straight up screen share. And again, having those buttons can be really, really useful. There are some dial actions as well. So if you have the Stream Deck Plus, you can sort of move the dial to actually navigate between slides as well. Okay, Windows gizmos. Again, this one is Windows only, as the name might imply. This is actually just a whole bunch of different utilities. And I guess like some of these things are just keyboard shortcuts in Windows, and other things do let you do different things. So the reason I kind of brought this one up for the purposes of this presentation segment is because we have this really beautiful button for showing and hiding desktop icons. And I'm just going to level with you. I'm the person that has 100 icons on my desktop. And if I have to share that screen, I want them to go away. And the great thing about this is you can very easily set this up, hide those, press it again when you're done to see them again. And it's just it's a really trivial cosmetic thing, but I have a feeling it would be really insanely useful for a lot of people for a lot of different reasons. Most of the other things in here are literally just Windows actions. So you can run things as admin, you can clear notifications, you can turn notifications on and off in Windows 11, you can turn on Windows speech recognition, dictation, voice commands, you can empty the recycle bin, they've got their sort of own Windows built-in magnifying options. The clipboard history, again, that's something I use every single day, although I do actually use the keyboard shortcut for that one. Reboots, close or kill an application, an on-screen keyboard. That might be fun if I press that one. I'm not sure which screen this will pop up on. In fact, it's popped up onto a different one, so I can just move this over here. But again, if you wanted to actually show people, you know, the keys that you're pressing, if you are teaching people about keyboard shortcuts, that could be really cool as well. The virtual desktops, and again, I have a weird feeling this is something Said was exploring with the Microsoft Power Toys. So potentially you can have multiple desktops that you can sort of toggle between for different setups. So, and we've got screen capture options as well. So there's all kinds of stuff. And again, probably a little tangentially related to what we're actually doing there, but I just wanted to mention it. Finally, the one that I really love is Matrix Display. So this again is the same company that's made a few of the other ones we've already looked at. And the thing that I love about this one, there is another thing here. Let me find it. There's this thing called Windows Mover Bar Raider that should theoretically move applications and put them in different parts of your screen. I've never had any success with this plugin at all, and I'm probably going to remove it after I'm done here. But the thing is, the Matrix Display offers very similar functionality, and it actually works for me. So if I can drag this onto one of my Stream Deck button options, I can choose to, you know, just move the active window, or I can choose a specific window. You can sort of look for the window title. So what I might do, just for purposes here, I'm going to say mix it up, asterisk, and then we've got the ability to choose to move this to different screens. And it sort of lists 20 screens. I don't have 20 screens. I have 4 screens. But the great thing about this is if I click this screen ID info, it should put a number. I don't know that you're going to see that number, but essentially it's put a number up in purple with a sort of white transparent background. So essentially, I'm just going to do that again because I've already forgotten. But the screen I'm sharing with you is screen number 1, so that's brilliant. And then I can sort of decide where I actually want to put this, and I can do this based on percentage of the screen that's available to me or by pixels. And we've got these layout options as well. This is I love this so much. So essentially what I might do is I'm going to say, hey, move this to the side, to half of the screen. And I can work with that way. So I'm not sure. I mean, it's always a little risky for me to try and do these demos in real time, but I'm going to try it. So I'm going to hit this button I just created and we'll see if it worked. Okay, it didn't quite work. So the problem is that it can't find that particular window. So what I do need to do is sort of say, search like pattern. So I might even try it that way. And it does actually have a process title helper. So I haven't tried this one yet, but essentially this is what I want to share. So I'm going to grab that. Cool. And then it'll hopefully find that for me. So let me try that again. Press the button. And it's moved my Mix It Up bot over to the left-hand side of that screen. So I know that probably seems pretty trivial, but I assure you it is not. And especially someone who uses a teleprompter and I might want to see different things on my screen at different times, I can certainly set that up to do different things. So, and that's the thing. Again, we've got all these different options. It could be that I actually go in and say, hey, move these 3 windows to these 3 positions. And I feel like it's a great thing for anybody that's actually doing a live show. And hello to Remaker of the World who's joining us. Said writes also, I like the hide icons, didn't see it before. Great when screen sharing during my training. My desktop is messy. My desktop is insanely messy. And I guess the other thing too is if you don't want to hide the icons, what I tend to do is I've got 3 different displays. I make sure the icons are always on the one I don't tend to share unless in very rare circumstances. So that's something to keep in mind. So these are all really cool and I love them. I guess the other thing I didn't mention before is they're all literally free, which is really cool. I mean, there might be others that do require you pay a little bit of something, but you know, so far so good. So we're going to go and we're going to come back in a second. And I want to talk about the OBS Studio plugins for Stream Deck. And there is sort of an official one. There's an unofficial one as well. So we'll get into that in just a moment.
Hey gang, if you need help running a live stream or optimizing your YouTube channel, get in touch with me. I can help you get set up with live streaming, operate your stream, strategize your YouTube channel, and so much more. Hit me up at samproof.tv and I'll talk to you soon.
And if you do need help with those live production services, do reach out to Sam. You can go to samproof.tv. Sam was here earlier. He did have an appointment, so he had to duck out, but that's okay. We will see him again next week. So today we are talking all about the Elgato Stream Deck, the family of devices that we have available to us to either physically buy and purchase and use, or you can also experiment with those mobile apps as well. Just a reminder, the mobile apps do give you 6 buttons for free, so if that is something you want to play with, you can certainly explore that further. All right, so obviously this show, and I say obviously, you might be new here, you may not be familiar with what's happening, but we do love OBS Studio. We do use it quite a lot, and we do recommend it to a lot of different people for different use cases. It does have a little bit of a learning curve, and we do want to acknowledge that, but again, I don't think it's nearly as scary as a lot of people would have you believe. But let's talk about some of the options we have in terms of actually using this in relation to the Stream Deck as well. So I guess the first thing is we have the OBS Studio plugin by Elgato themselves. This is kind of the official option. This is kind of what I would recommend for most people, and it does some really, really cool stuff. If I get rid of my my search over here, and let's just find OBS Studio from the list. See, there we go. We've got a whole bunch of different options here. So we've got the ability to record. We've got the ability to record pause. We've got chapter markers. That's a relatively new feature in OBS. The ability to stream. I should say I have a bit of a mixed relationship with that button this morning because I accidentally pressed it and we went live before we meant to go live, and it completely ruined the event that I'd set up everywhere. So we had to really quickly reschedule everything in various places, which is a real pain. But again, it's my fault. I hit the button. I wasn't really thinking. But again, it's certainly an option there, and most of the time it'll work really, really well for you. We've got the virtual camera. So the virtual camera essentially lets you take whatever you're doing in OBS and just share that with any program that supports a webcam. So it could be that, you know, maybe you're bringing the screen share, maybe you're bringing your branding colors, logos, calls to action, QR codes, all that kind of stuff. And you can sort of toggle the virtual camera on and off from that button as well. We got a replay buffer options and replay buffer save. I've never, ever used the replay buffer for anything. Again, I think it's more focused towards people playing games, which is not my particular interest in OBS, but is cool nonetheless. We got the ability to switch scene collections over here as well. And I might scroll up a little bit because I'm conscious of the fact I'm probably obscuring some of these options. We can switch profiles, we can switch scenes. That's incredibly useful. We can toggle the source visibility. So if you want to show or hide something, you can do that over there. We've got audio mixer options. We've got media source control, studio mode and transitions, filters, screenshots, and scene transition as well. So we don't really have a lot of time to get into what all those things do, but they are incredibly useful because at the end of the day, and again, I just want to take you back to the extra large because this is where most of the magic of this show happens. So I've got all these different buttons set up for different things. I've got the ability to go live. I've got sort of different scenes, so the start sequence, the tabs that we're usually on, you know, some multi actions for the website call to actions at the end of the show, the end cards, all these different things. A lot of these are actually the filters down the bottom, these little magic wand things. Those are my ability to move around. So you'll see here, I've got one that's John SS, which is screen share, and John NSS, which is no screen share. So if I switch between that, I'll go back here and then I can press it again and go back to the sharing the screen. And again, when Sam is actually here, we can switch between a whole bunch of different layouts, whether we're side by side, whether we're full screen, all kinds of things like that. And it is interesting because it's those buttons do actually fill up pretty quickly if you're running a more elaborate setup. So that is really cool. And potentially we could do an entire show on that alone, but we don't really have time to do that today. And I guess the other thing too is if you're running multiple instances of OBS Studio, and I realize this is probably a problem for people who only teach how to use OBS. It's probably not a problem for most normal people. But the thing about this is whichever version you have open first is the version that your Stream Deck will relate to. But we do also have this thing, which is the multi-OBS controller. And this attempts to overcome that limitation. So you can control one or multiple OBS Studio instances at the same time, easily keep them synchronized or manage them individually, stream, record, set current scene, toggle source visibility, trigger hotkeys, mute audio, all of the things. And you sort of you have the ability to actually, you know, say, do I want this to affect all versions of OBS or just one of the one or two versions that are running? So again, it's not something I personally use, but I have been thinking about this lately because there have been times when I am tutoring somebody on OBS and I'll be using OBS to screen share with them and a second version to actually talk them through the options. Okay, so Saeed writes, I use a multi-action for starting OBS and start virtual camera, so I can quickly start a Zoom meeting, for example. That's a really good use case. I like that quite a lot. So we do have all kinds of options in terms of the many different things that we could be doing there, and it is a really great place to start. So and Saeed writes also, oh, I didn't know that. Glad you did the research for me. I needed this for a long time. This is a real pain. So again, I don't feel like this is something everyone will need, but the people that will need it will probably benefit from quite a lot. I must admit I haven't had a chance to install this and play with this yet, and I feel like if Sam had been here, he could probably talk us through a lot more of this, but I do love the idea of it. And again, it's sort of like it's actually contributed, I think, just by an individual. That's another great thing about the OBS sort of ecosphere, is that so many people are volunteering their time and energy and helping us with all those various things, which is really, really cool. So just a reminder, if you do want any of the links that we've spoken about today, you can head over to johnlacey.com/Stream Deck plugins. This will bring you to this LinkedIn newsletter item. You can subscribe to the Learn a Live Streaming newsletter over on LinkedIn. Currently sitting on 559 subscribers, so that's really, really cool. We'll be back again next week, hopefully with fewer technical issues. It's just been that kind of day, and you know, we managed to get through it. So I'm actually going to talk. So I guess normally I would jump to those different actions that show you know, our calls to action. I'm not going to do that today. If you want to learn more about Sam, you can head over to samproof.tv. If you're looking to see some adorable kittens, head over to cuteavalanche.com. And if you want to catch up with me, you can head over to johnlacey.com. There's a whole bunch of articles, the podcast. Social links are at the bottom of those pages. Come find me where I tend to hang out, which is mostly YouTube and LinkedIn. But we will be back next week. I'm not really sure what next week's show is going to be about, but we'll sort of figure that out in a moment. I do actually, just in the background, I'm going to quickly make a change in the background here, because I'm conscious of the fact that if I just jump to our normal options, you won't hear the end music, but that's okay. So again, thank you so much for joining us today. We'll be back next week. I hope you have a great week. Have a great weekend. And don't forget to like and subscribe wherever you happen to be watching this. And we'll talk to you again very, very soon.